Giants football is back. Players reported to Quest Diagnostics Training Center today to kick off training camp 2025. They hit the field for the first time on Wednesday. This is your Blue Rush training camp preview. Let's welcome back our Giants beat writer for the Post, Paul Schwartz. Paul, thanks for hopping on, man. I haven't seen you in a long time. How you handle your summer, and are you excited for training camp number what for you?
32 with the
Oof.
Giants. I think 35 in the NFL. You know what I would say, Brandon? Let's go, right? Come on, let's go. It's time, right?
Yep,
Practice.
yep, yep.
No more OTAs, no more off season, no more draft. This is not the real thing, but it's the real thing as far as training camp.
Absolutely.
You were a player. You were juiced up today, right, to report. Summer full of opportunity. Same thing with me. Let's go. Let's see what's going on out there. Let's hopefully not injuries, and we see some good plays and some bad plays, and defense ahead of the offense. And let's go back to football.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who you are on that roster. You are juiced up to be reporting. They've already posted some of the pictures of the players coming in. You see the smiles on their faces. This is the last time you're going to see smiles on guys' faces for a long time, because once the dog days hit, it's like you got to reach into your higher power and tap into an inner element of like, how do I get through today? It's not like it used to be out in Albany when we had to drive that hour and a half up 87 to report at the University of Albany. Those Tom Coughlin days, those tour days out there. But at the end of the day, regardless of who you are battling for something. You're either playing for a roster spot, extra playing time, or you're battling for footballs. The number one battle, though, Paul, everyone is going to talk about it. I know it's not so much of a battle right now, but everybody is going to be talking about this day in, day out, is the quarterback battle. And I know Russell Wilson is QB1, but at the end of the day, this is what training camp is all about. I feel as though that this, with what Russ has been able to do, getting the guys together in the summer after out in San Diego, guys still working out. I feel like they won this past game. This offense feels like we need to hit the ground running right away, connect on some moon balls, and I think Russ is looking at it like, all right, this is the first time Giants fans are going to be able to see me at practice. I want to make sure that I put my best foot forward and I show that I'm a Super Bowl winner, 10-time Pro Bowler. Now that we're finally here, Paul, what are your thoughts on the quarterback battle now?
Well, it's a battle. It's not a battle, but that doesn't stop us from talking about it and people videoing it and people, just obsessing over it. Look, Russell Wilson is a new quarterback. Anytime there's new quarterbacks on the field, it's interesting, right? They have three of them. They have Russell Wilson, they have Jameis Winston, and they have Jaxson Dart. So that's all going to start the first training camp practice of their Giants lives on Wednesday, right? So that's big. Now, you have to think of this logically, right? Russell Wilson is going to be the starter on opening day against the Commanders, barring an injury. So he's new to the program. He knows a lot, but he's new to this offense. He needs to get reps and reps and reps. That doesn't mean he's going to get every snap in preseason. That's putting him in harm's way. He needs reps. Jameis Winston needs reps. Jaxson Dart, what does he need? He needs reps when available. When available. So I think this hype machine with Jaxson Dart for this summer is overblown. He's not competing for the starting job. I don't want, people are going to say, well, if he looks good, you know what? He's not going to be given the opportunity to look that good, because how many snaps is he going to get with the starters? In the OTAs, you sprinkle him in here and there. Jaxson, let's go, right? In with the starters, bang. In with the ones. Let's see what you can do. You'll do a little bit of that this summer, but not at the expense of Russell Wilson. He needs snaps. So if the Giants thought Jaxson Dart was a plug-and-play quarterback, they would have taken him at number 3, right?
Yep,
Last year,
yep.
they would have gladly taken Jaden Daniels or Drake May, and they would have thought they were pretty much plug-and-play guys. Jaxson Dart is not that kind of a prospect right now. They traded up to get him at number 25, which means they think he's the quarterback of the future. The future is not this summer. So He's not competing for the starting job, but that doesn't mean I won't be writing about him often. You won't be talking about him often, and fans won't be juiced up to watch him. That's fine. That's fine. That's okay. As long as at the end of the day, people realize he's not going to beat out Russell Wilson, barring something incredibly unforeseen.
And I'm glad you said that, because I still feel like Brian Dable was going to put Jaxson Dart in position to fail forward. Like you said, he may not sniff the ones. Don't worry. Don't even in individuals, don't even line up with Malik Neighbors, because you're not throwing him the football in 7-on-7s or in a team period. But I feel like, especially with a lot of those reports and what Brian Dable and those guys were talking about during the spring, how they were going to throw a lot at him, I feel like they're going to do that, but exactly like you said, not at the expense of getting Russell Wilson acclimated to this offense. And on the flip side of it, Jameis Winston as well, because like you said, Russell Wilson is the starter barring injury. Something happens like last year in Pittsburgh where he had the calf injury, Justin Fields has to play. Now Jameis Winston has to go on there. So Jameis can throw with Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, and those guys and individuals, because he may get some reps in 7-on-7s and team as well. But Jaxson Dart, absolutely not. But we're going to be writing about that kid, talking about that kid, because one day it's going to be he had 2 interceptions. They're not going to be terrible interceptions like, he may get picked off. Dane Belton is going to do his thing. But it's going to be in the sense of putting him in a position to grow. And I think Brian Dable, I'm with you on this one, to where they're going to give this kid just breadcrumbs, Hansel and Gretel, breadcrumbs to get him ready, and hopefully they don't have to put him in when he's not ready. And I mentioned how he won't be able to throw the football to Malik Neighbors anytime soon. Malik Neighbors, 67th best player in the NFL. We already know what he brings to the table, Paul, but I feel like it's the other Giants receivers that need to change the narrative about this offense. No disrespect when I call these guys the other guys, but the Wandales, Darius Slayton, and the Jalen Hyatts, I feel like they have a lot of, not necessarily pressure, a good pressure on them, Paul, for them to come out firing early as well.
Look, the offense has been historically bad for the last few years. Now you have a new quarterback, but you have the same receivers. As you mentioned, Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Darius Slayton are all back. Jalen Hyatt is back. Theo Johnson, the tight end, who had a shortened rookie year, he's back. Tyrone Tracy's back. Motor Singletary's back. There's a lot of guys back for an offense that was really bad.
Yeah.
So it's what does that say? That says that Joe Schoen and Brian Dable said, you know what? It was the quarterback more than it was the whole offensive line or all the receivers. They didn't have to re-sign Darius Slayton, but they did.
Yeah. Paid him pretty nice too. Gave him a nice little penny.
Yeah. We all like Darius Slayton. Good for him that he's back. But they could have gone elsewhere if they said, it's just not working after 6 years with Darius Slayton. So look, I don't think they have to hit the ground running. You were on the field in training camp. The defense is usually ahead of the offense. It's just the way it works. They're all lathered up, right? They're coming. They'll do some blitzes. They'll do some twists and everything like that. And the offense will say, we were not ready for that. And we with the pads on and all this other stuff, the Thibodeau and Abdul Carter be running by Russell Wilson. They'll be telling, that would have been a sack. That would have been a sack. We get it. We get all that. So look, if the Giants defense, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, is what we think it is, they'll be ahead of the offense, which is fine. So I don't know if, on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Oh, by the way, do you see the weather forecast for Thursday and Friday?
No.
Hot.
I'll be in Germany.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's Thursday, Friday. It's going to be hot. Like feels like temperature is 100.
Uh-oh.
So, those dog days are coming early. They're coming early this week. This season, certainly this summer.
So what I mean, Paul, by these Giants receivers being able to hit the ground running and kind of starting fast, I know that defense is going to be ahead of them. But when, like you talked about, when Kayvon and Abdul Carter is running past Russell Wilson, it's not a sack. He still gets to throw the football down the field. So this is where these guys are going to get measured and judged and evaluated from a Russ, from a Mike Kafka, Brian Dable on who's going to catch that 50-50 ball. We can't target. Remember, we agreed last year, we can't target Malik Neighbors 18 times in a game. Somebody has to emerge as a true number two, WR2, wide receiver number two, playmaker number two, whatever you want to call it. So when that ball is thrown down the field, yeah, it's a sack, and we'll see that in Kayvon and those dudes. They'll do their dance, they'll fly by. He'll be pointing at Jermaine Illuminor. They've already been going at it on Twitter, so they'll keep an eye on that. But when that ball's down the field and you got whoever he's on, Cordell Flott, Tay Banks, Giants receivers need to come down with that football, because that, with the crowd there, and you talk about the hype and people being excited about this season, those guys need to make a play on that football so Russ can have that confidence to let these guys know, hey, the moon ball, you're alert for that. We talk about Kayvon and these guys going by, going by Jermaine Illuminor and stuff, but the pads are coming on pretty soon. So all that fighting, all that mumbo jumbo brouhaha, the pads are coming on pretty soon. We talk about Andrew Thomas. I wonder how much he's going to practice right away. We know what this Giants offensive line looks like with AT in the lineup and Andrew Thomas out of the lineup. The biggest question mark I have going into camp, Paul, or I'm actually going to be paying attention to a lot more than what I have in the past, is these trenches. Because it doesn't matter if you got Malik Neighbors, doesn't matter if you have Mr. Dangerous. If you can't protect them, these guys they're effecto non grado.
Yeah, look, he's one of their best players, and he has not been able to stay on the field. It's as simple as that. You know what I mean? It's not, through fault of whoever, but he has not been able to stay on the field. And until he starts opening day and then starts week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5.
13.
That's just the way it is. He's the left tackle, and he's been unlucky. I don't know, it'll be interesting to see if he's changed any kind of habits. Some guys, interesting. We talked to Greg Van Roten, right? In spring, 35 years old. He played every snap on offense last year, right? And I asked him, what is the secret? And he was not, first of all, players hate that, right? Because they don't want to sound like they've got the secret. They don't want to sound like I can't get hurt. And he just said, look, it's luck. Sometimes you get hurt. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes a guy rolls this way. Sometimes guy rolls that way. The main thing is, I always hear offensive linemen say, don't stand around a pile.
Yeah.
Pile, don't stand around a pile, because someone's going to roll into your ankles and take you down. And that's a problem. You know what I mean? And you're not even in the play, really. So, Andrew Thomas has to be really aware. Do I expect him to take every snap starting Wednesday? I do not. There's no reason for him to. He needs to get back. Apparently, he has really worked his upper body, because he couldn't work his lower body, a lot of the offseason because he had a foot injury. So he really worked that upper body. So it'll be interesting to see if, he's always a big dude, if he's even bigger. And he needs to look with him. There's a roadmap for the offensive line with him anchored at left tackle. There's a roadmap. I'm not saying it's great, and I'm not saying there could not be pitfalls there, but there's a roadmap that makes sense. Without him, there really is not. There really is not. They signed James Hudson III. He could move in there, but it's Andrew Thomas or Gulp if on that offensive line if he's not available.
Yeah, because you brought Jermaine Illuminor in last year to be a right tackle. He kind of got thrown into the mix out there in London. Not in Munich. Did okay. But he is not a left tackle. And we talk to these guys, Paul, and they talk about the difference in playing from the left side to the right side. And then here's a guy, Evan Neal, might as well go ahead and throw him in there, to go from left side to right side to now being kicked into the interior. They're giving this man every chance in the world. Man, Paul, as the undrafted free agent, I wish I got all these chances to make a team. There must be something about this kid, to where Evan Neal, to where they're like, you know what, we're going to give you every single chance. And I wonder if it's because Eric Flowers had success after he kind of left here, wasn't able to play left, wasn't able to play right. He went to the Jaguars and the Commanders and had a pretty, decent career after he left here playing in the interior. Same thing with Mekhi Becton when he left the Jets, and he's playing the inside with the Eagles now. So they're giving you first-round picks, you lucky dogs, because you guys get all these opportunities to not only make the team, but to start and get your money. Evan Neal, this has to be your camp. Do you see a situation where Evan Neal comes out as a starter, Paul, out of training camp?
I see a situation, but I don't think he's the favorite right now. I know the Giants liked what they saw of him playing guard in the spring, because when you look up, they said that is a huge man and a
Yeah.
huge body filling a gap there at guard. And the Giants think it's going to be hard to run around him because he's so big. Now the pads will come on and we'll see. Look, judging a guard without pads is, I don't know, judging a wide receiver without cleats. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't, it's like, okay, that looks good, but you can catch the ball in the jugs, but now you got to run routes,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So once if when they line up Dexter Lawrence across from him, or Darius Alexander or Abdul Carter breathing, then we'll see if he, it's different, right? You have less time to react. There's a lot of twists and stunts you got to deal with up front. It happens faster. It happens faster, and you have to be right, and you have to be in sync with the tackle and the center. And don't discount Greg Van Roten. They re-signed him for a reason. Now, Greg Van Roten can be a backup guard and center. So if he's not a starter, he fills valuable roles, left guard, right guard, center. He's played center at a reasonable level. So you can do that at 35. That's what they would like to see happen, but they really value his leadership. They consider him a glue guy. So they're not going to just take him out and say, okay, Evan, you look okay at guard, but you're a former first round pick, so we have to save face and put you in there. Because he's not a glue guy, and he doesn't give you that veteran. He'll be a first-time guard. So to beat out Greg Van Roten, he has to be physically better, Evan Neal, and he has to show he's mentally tough, because they like that moxie and that veteran leadership. He's a real vocal leader on an offensive line, quite frankly, that's not very vocal. It really isn't.
Yeah.
So Evan Neal's going to win the job. He's going to have to earn it. They're not giving it to him. And if he doesn't earn it and win it, he can make the team as a swing guard. He can. They're not going to just cut him. If he shows he can play left guard, he can play right guard, but he hasn't beaten out Van Roten, he can still make the team as a backup, but he'll be as a backup.
Well, I wonder if his competition is now JMS, John Michael Schmitz, then, because if Van Roten can play center, let's say Evan Neal holds his own against a Dexter Lawrence throughout these practices, JMS has kind of struggled against some of the bigger bodied interior linemen. So if Evan Neal holds his own, you think there's a situation where he stays at guard, then Van Roten gets bumped in. So anything can happen in training camp.
It can, but you know what? John Michael Schmitz was a second-round pick of this regime. They like him better than you like him, and they like him better than I like him, and they like the coaching staff and the front office likes him better than I think the league likes him. And so we will see. He's a big, strong guy. He knows the offense. I think he's a good communicator. He makes the calls. But they like Runyon next to him. They like Van Roten next to him. So is that a training wheel kind of thing that you have to take off? Don't forget, if you have Evan Neal, now JMS cannot lean on Evan Neal because Evan Neal is less experienced. Van Roten is more experienced. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So now if you have Runyon and Van Roten, JMS, has a safer window there because the two guys to his left and right know exactly what they're doing. But JMS knows what he's doing, but this is a huge year for him because it's his third year. Is he going to be re-signed? I mean, like I said, they like him better and think he's progressing more so than most of us do. As always, I don't know if they're right and we're wrong, or we're wrong and they're right, vice versa, whatever. The field and the performance will tell us what the deal is there.
I'm glad you mentioned he's going into his third year, because another guy that's got a lot of eyes on him that's going into his third year, and what I feel like is in the position battle that means the most important position battle, Paul, that I have, and my eyes are going to be locked in on that fight for CB2, Cordell Flott versus Tay Banks, or maybe some unknown vet that's out there that doesn't need to be at the beginning of training camp. If they don't like what they see from these two guys, it could be a guy that they bring in from off the street. I had posted something with me and Cordell Flott from a shoot that we did, I believe like a year and a half ago, and I had put like Flott season loading, and he hit me up in the DMs, and he was like, you'll see. He was like, you'll see. Paul, just to instigate, because, heck, this is football, I think Cordell Flott thinks he can take this CB2 job.
You know what? See what this is? It's a poker chip I have on my desk here. Okay. So I don't think it's a flip. I don't think it's a flip of the coin, but it's an open competition. Okay. The days of your first round pick, we're giving you every chance to start, are over. You know, I was told they're over. You know what I mean? They would like Deonte Banks to win the job. He's their first round pick. You know, he's got ability. Cordell Flott was a third round pick. He's got ability too. So, if Deonte Banks does not win the job and he's their fourth corner behind Andrew Phillips, who's the nickelback, that's a lot of depth. But the Giants, the front office doesn't want to see that. They're not looking to have their first round pick as depth. They want him to start, but he needs to play better. He needs to have better effort. They thought he was on pace as a rookie. Wasn't great as a rookie, but he was not a washout as a rookie. He was okay. He showed promise, and last year was a big step back. It just was. They have two new coaches, right? They have two new coaches in the defensive backfield, including a new cornerbacks coach, Jeff Burris. So that is, how it is, right? Evan Neal had more than one offensive line coach. Brandon London, did not get coaches fired, but first round picks get coaches fired. They just do, or they get them reassigned, or they get them demoted. We're going to change the voice. So there's a different voice. So they think that will help him. But the problem with Cordell Flott is he gets hurt. He has not played a full season in 3 years, a lot of soft tissue stuff. So the front office is wary of that. Can we count on him? Because the track record says no. He will get hurt at some point. He's a thin guy. He's kind of muscled up a little bit, but he's a thin guy, and that's something he has to shake. But this will be a competition. Yeah, this will be a competition, and they would like to see the first round pick Banks win it, but he's got to go do it. They're not going to hand it to him.
That's something I'm going to ask Cordell when we're out there tomorrow or sometime throughout training camp. But is there anything you've done different in terms of preparing your body for an NFL season? And it's kind of, I guess, odd to me that he would have these injuries because you're coming from the LSU, you're coming from an NFL program, basically. So when we're talking about weight room and the yogas and the stretching to get your body ready for a 17-game NFL season, I wonder why his hasn't kind of held up. But then again, like you said, like Van Roten said, it's luck for some guys. Some guys could be the best athletes in the world, but they stay hurt. Some guys just, it just is what it is when it comes to that. But that is with, and to go back to this battle at CB2, I was watching Sean O'Hara in the little series that he does to drive along, and Marquand Manuel was in the car, pass game coordinator, secondaries coach. That dude sounds like he over-communicates. And I think that it will be great for a Tay Banks and a young Cordell Flott, because now you already know the buy-in is going to be there when it comes to Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland and Tyler Nubin. Those guys, they seem like they want to be coached. They want to get better. I'm not saying that Flott or Tay Banks doesn't. But again, when you talk about some of the things that happened last year when it came to the Tay Banks, it's like, You've seen that player who's been like, I'm tired of hearing this. I'm tired of hearing it. It's not working. You're not putting me in the right position. We may have done this under Wink, or we may have done this under my secondary coach or coordinator in college. You see those guys. So now you bring in a Marquand Manuel who played in the league for a long time, is highly respected. And not saying Jerome Henderson or none of those guys weren't, but like you said, first-round picks can get some guys fired. So now I want to see what Marquand Manuel can do with this secondary. But, Paul, we don't talk – go ahead.
One thing real quick is that, I liked in the spring, we were talking to Bobby Okereke, and he was asked, with the presence of Paulson Adebo, an established cornerback, does that take some of the pressure off Deonte Banks? And Bobby Okereke said he doesn't need pressure taken off him, which is a good point, right? He doesn't need pressure taken off him. He just needs to play better. It's not like we have to handle him with kid gloves. I mean, his effort issues last year were effort issues. That's what they are. And Jeff Burris, the cornerbacks coach, I asked him about that this spring, and he said, you should never have to coach effort. I said, do you talk to effort? Do you talk about effort with the guy? He said, you should never have to coach effort. You talk technique and assignment and miscommunication, but you should never say you need to play harder. Yeah. You need to work harder. You need to, pursue harder. So As you mentioned, it's not working for Deonte Banks now. And whatever, needed to get knocked off him to realize that, he needs to go in and realize that he's fighting for a starting job and act accordingly.
And they sent the message because, it may not have been pressure. The Paulson and Debo signing may not need to take pressure off of him, but it's a warning shot to let you know you're not that guy. You are not that guy that you think you are. We're bringing in a guy. We've identified a guy to where we want on the Justin Jeffersons, the CD Lambs, and those guys. So one thing I love about training camp, Paul, is just it's prove it. Go out there in the doggiest days of summer where it's hot. There's no glamour. There's no social media. Yeah, you can post a picture of your interception or whatever later on, but there's no social media on that field. You got to prove it because everybody's watching that tape. But we won't be able to evaluate the secondary, Paul, if they don't stop the run this year. Who's going to be that guy that gets that start next to Dexter Lawrence? It's going to be Darius Alexander, Abdul Carter. I think the kid's going to have double-digit sacks. Can he play the run? Kayvon has been really solid against the run. When he gets injured, there's a drop-off there when Kayvon is not on the field when it comes to that run defense. Paul, we're not talking it's week 6, and we're frustrated again with this team if they cannot stop the run. Giants their run defense has to be better this year.
Don't forget, Dexter Lawrence got hurt. Bobby Okereke got hurt. Those are issues. Look, Roy Robertson Harris is a veteran. They signed him, and he is 31 years old. So he right now is going to line up with the ones next to Dexter Lawrence. Right? Fine. I think Darius Alexander will supplant him at some point. And I think the Giants front office thinks that too. Yeah. They think that after all is said and done in the summer, that Darius Alexander will be a starter. As a rookie, as a third-round pick. Now, it was frustrating because he didn't do a lot in the spring, right? He got banged up, and so we didn't see him out there a lot, but he should be fine for training camp, and we don't have to anoint him. He doesn't have to, start right away, but he just looks like a dude, right? He's a big guy.
Yeah,
He's a big, he looked, look, I've seen rookies for so many years, right? 3 decades I've seen these rookies come in, and usually they can look great, but they just look young. They look like rookies sometimes. They don't look like they've been in an NFL weight room and locker room setting. But this guy, Darius Alexander, looks naturally big. He's just a naturally big man. And I think he's going to be a pretty good player. So that will be interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's a mindset. Dexter has to stay healthy. Abdul Carter can play the run. He is not a one. Look, he played on the inside for 2 years at Penn State. That wasn't a glamour spot. That number 11 was inside. And when they talk about, the Giants coaching staff, Andre Patterson and Charlie Bullen, the defensive line coach and outside linebacker coach, respectively, they have both talked about him as a finisher. And that was not just as a pass rusher. That was as a ball carrier dropper, that he knows how to finish. So when he knows how to navigate it and get to the ball carrier, and then he puts him down. That's what he does. So I think he can be a very, very effective run stopper. Yes, they cannot be what they were last year, which was lousy against the run. They're not built. I mean, I would say they're not built, 100% as a run stopping unit that maybe like the Ravens were in years gone by. Bobby Okereke is not a monster in the middle there. Micah McFadden is they're good players. Is not a monster in the middle. Tyler Newman, he could be a guy that really established himself as a run support guy. But they need to be better. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch Abdul Carter in pads. Like I might take a PTO day that day, Paul, just to make sure I'm out there at practice to see this kid. I'm not calling him a savior or anything, but I think this kid is going to be special. I think he's going to break Lawrence Taylor's rookie record, sack record at 9.5. Cannot wait to see this kid play. You can look at him here in the highlights. Absolute dog. He's just got that je ne sais quoi. The kid knows he's good. And I think that competition, again, I know we've talked about it before, just the competition of having that kid in the room is going to make Kayvon better, going to make Brian Burns better, just the entire defensive line. There's there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of hope. And I guess because it's day one of training camp or whatever, but there is a lot of hope when it comes to this team, Paul. Go ahead, finish this off, Paul, because I know we got to get ready for practice tomorrow.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's hope. Look, if you don't have hope the day before the first practice, then you're in trouble. Most people around the league don't think the Giants are any good. They don't think there's any hope. They think they're clearly the fourth place team. That remains to be seen. They have a very hard schedule, but I'm not worried about the schedule now.
No.
It's the third week of July. I'm worried about the first practice, then the second, then the third, and then there's a break, and then they put the pads on and, see who stays healthy, who doesn't stay healthy. Look what happened. The Lions have already had, injuries, and the Giants haven't even practiced yet. The Lions already have a bunch of injuries. So that's difficult. You don't want to see that. So I think you mentioned a couple of things. Abdul Carter on defense, you're gonna have to watch every play because he's going to be very interesting to watch. And you have new quarterbacks, and so you have new quarterbacks, and whenever there's a new quarterback, including a first round pick who's a rookie, it juices everybody up, and you watch because it's different and it's new, and so that will be something. Believe me, there'll be a lot of phones, a lot of whenever these guys are up, everyone's going to have you got to be able to watch and also video and also look and take pictures because everyone's going to want to see. You see that throw Dart made? Oh man, Russ missed that read. Oh, Russ, that was a good play. Look at that moon ball he threw to Hyatt. Ooh, got to get that on video. You get that, Brandon? I didn't get that. Can you send it to me? That's what people are going to be talking about because it's new, and that's fun. So look, if you can't be moderately optimistic now, then you got to get out of the business, right? We'll be pessimistic and down when we need to be. Right now, we don't have to be.
Yep. So make sure you guys stay locked in with us. We'll be out there at the practices. You stay locked in because we're going to talk about everything we see at these practices in our post-game report. Thanks for watching Blue Rush. For Paul Schwartz, I'm Brandon London. We'll see you guys soon.